Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. And Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. And Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. And Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. And Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. And Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. And Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. There we go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Just a minute, second for this thing to wake up. So on this 11th day of February 2019, the glorious appearance day of Sri Advaita Acharya, we're reading from various selections from the Chaitanya Charitamrita about Advaita Acharya and his relationship with Lord Chaitanya and the other members of the Panchatattva. So this is a reading from Adi Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 1, verse 13. This is part of the Mangalacharan, describing the glories of Lord Chaitanya, the Panchatattva, Nityananda, and Advaita Acharya. Advaitam Harina Advaitan Acharyam Bhakti Shanksanat Bhaktavataram Isham Tam Advaita Acharyam Ashraye Advaitam Harina Advaitad Acharyam Bhakti Shanksanat Bhaktavataram Isham Tam Advaita Acharyam Ashraye Advaitam Harina Advaitad Acharyam Bhakti Shanksanat Bhaktavataram Isham Tam Advaita Acharyam Ashraye Advaitam Harina Advaitad Acharyam Bhakti Shanksanat Bhaktavataram Isham Tam Advaita Acharyam Ashraye Advaitam Harina Advaitad Advaitam Bhakti Shanksanat Bhaktavataram Isham Tam Advaita Acharyam Ashraye Advaitam Harina Advaitad Acharyam Bhakti Shanksanat Bhaktavataram Isham Tam Advaita Acharyam Ashraye Advaitam Harina Advaitad Acharyam Bhakti Shanksanat Bhaktavataram Isham Tam Advaita Acharyam Ashraye. Advaitam, known as Advaita. Harina, with Lord Hari. Advaitat, from being non-different. Acharyam, known as Acharya. Bhakti Shanksanat. From the propagation of devotional service to Sri Krishna. Bhakta Avataram. The incarnation as a devotee. Isham. To the Supreme Lord. Tam. To him. Advaita Acharyam. To Advaita Acharya. Ashraye. I surrender. Translation. Because he is non-different from Hari, the Supreme Lord, he is called Advaita. And because he propagates the cult of devotion, he is called Acharya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotee. Therefore, I take shelter of him. So now we are going to read a section from the Chaitanya Charitamrita describing how Advaita Acharya brought Lord Chaitanya with his loud calls and his appeals. Just give me a second here. Okay. So this is from the 3rd chapter, describing the external reasons for Lord Chaitanya's appearance. External means his propagation of Sankirtan through the chanting of the holy name, and why he appeared, and why Advaita Acharya was so eager to have the Supreme Personality appear to deliver the people. So here it starts out in this beginning text 92. Acharya Goshai Prabhu Bhakta Avatar, Krishna Avatar Hetu Yanhara Hunkar. This Hunkar is actually a name for him. It means really loud calling, like splitting the heavens, calling out to the Lord to appear, to save the fallen souls. Advaita Acharya Goswami is an incarnation of the Lord as a devotee. His loud calling was the cause for Krishna's incarnation. Whenever Krishna desires to manifest his incarnation on the earth, first he creates the incarnations of his respectable predecessors. Just like you remember, Lord Krishna first sent his father and his mother and senior members of the Yadu dynasty. So many came before him to prepare the way. Thus respectable personalities such as his father, mother, and spiritual master all take birth on earth first. Madhavendra Puri, Ishwara Puri, Srimati Shachimata, and Srila Jagannath Mishra all appeared with Sri Advaita Acharya. So I'll just read this short purport. Whenever the Supreme Lord descends in his human form, he sends ahead all his devotees who act as his father, teacher, and associates in many roles. Such personalities appear before the descent of the Supreme Lord. Before the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, there appeared his devotees like Sri Madhavendra Puri, his spiritual master Ishwara Puri, his mother Srimati Shachi Devi, his father Jagannath Mishra, and Sri Advaita Acharya. Next verse. Advaita Acharya having appeared, he found the world devoid of devotional service to Sri Krishna because people were engrossed in material affairs. Everyone was engaged in material enjoyment, whether sinfully or virtuously. No one was interested in the transcendental service of the Lord, which can give total relief from the repetition of birth and death. So, especially in Navadvip. Now, Navadvip was the center of learning at that time in India. People came from all over in order to study Nyaya, which is logic, and so many different fields of knowledge. But there were very few bhaktas. There was a lot of material knowledge and understanding. And it describes, even there in one book that I read, there was a lot of criminality going on, corruption, murder, and dacoits, which I didn't understand. But I guess whenever there isn't pure bhakti being propagated, then you're going to have these lower activities and modes. So Advaita saw that, and he was lamenting. I'm going to read this another short purport here. Advaita Acharya saw the entire world to be engaged in activities of material piety and impiety without a trace of devotional service or Krishna consciousness anywhere. The fact is that in this material world, there's no scarcity of anything except Krishna consciousness. Material necessities are supplied by the mercy of the Lord. We sometimes feel scarcity because of our mismanagement. But the real problem is that people are out of touch with Krishna consciousness. Everyone is engaged in material sense gratification, but people have no plan for making an ultimate solution to their real problems: birth, old age, disease, and death. These four material miseries are called bhava roga, or the material disease. They can be cured only by Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is the greatest benediction for human society. So this is the hallmark of great devotees. Of course, he's actually, as it said in the verse, Isha. He is an incarnation of Mahavishnu. That's explained elsewhere. But at the same time, he had the soft and compassionate heart of a Vaishnava, and he saw this as a great emergency, that people were deviating far away from the Vedic culture, from the true essence of the Vedic culture, which is pure devotional service, and that they were suffering for it. And he saw, this is part of Kali Yuga. And he felt that only the Lord himself could actually cure this, could actually counteract this tide toward degradation. And so and this is the same mood that's been carried forward by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. He was lamenting to Haridas Thakur, how can all these fools and rascals be delivered? And Haridas was encouraging him, you've already delivered them just by your appearance, anyone who's here, and so forth. But the deliverance came, of course, through the propagation of Nam Sankirtan. Next verse. Seeing the activities of the world, the Acharya felt compassion and began to ponder how he could act for the people's benefit. Okay, there's an often nice purport here which I won't read. He thought, if Sri Krishna himself were to appear as an incarnation, he himself could preach devotion by his personal example. In this age of Kali, there is no religion other than the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. But how in this age will the Lord appear as an incarnation? Because he's known to be Tri Yuga. He doesn't appear in Kali Yuga, it's too contaminated. I shall worship Krishna in a purified state of mind. I shall constantly petition him in humbleness. My name is Advaita. My name, Advaita, will be fitting if I am able to induce Krishna to inaugurate the movement of the chanting of the holy name. So let's see. I think this explained. I'll read a little bit of this purport. The non-dualist Mayavadi philosopher who falsely believes that he is non-different from the Lord is unable to call him like Advaita Prabhu. Advaita Prabhu isn't undifferent from the Lord, yet in his relationship with the Lord he does not merge with him but eternally renders service unto him as a plenary portion. This is inconceivable for the Mayavadis because they think in terms of mundane sense perception and therefore think that non-dualism necessitates losing one's separate identity. It is clear from this verse, however, that Advaita Prabhu, although retaining his separate identity, is non-different from the Lord. Now this comes up later, I'll just mention it here now, but maybe we'll deal with it a little later. How, just as Advaita Prabhu is really Vishnu Tattva, he is a manifestation of Mahavishnu, Nityananda Prabhu is Balaram, yet still both of them were wholly sold out in serving Lord Chaitanya. This proved to be a whole problem for Advaita because he's a senior figure. He's a good, 40, 50 years older than Lord Chaitanya. And very senior Vaishnava. He was a godbrother of Lord Chaitanya's guru, Ishwar Puri. He was a real initiated disciple of Madhavendra Puri. So there was a whole effort to try to get Lord Chaitanya to treat him as a servant rather than as a superior. And we'll tell some of that pastime later. So while Advaita was thinking about how to propitiate Krishna by worship, the following verse came to mind. Tulasi dalamatrena jalasya chulukena va vikrinite sumatmanam bhaktebhyo bhaktavatsala. Sri Krishna, who is very affectionate toward his devotees, sells himself to a devotee who offers him merely a tulsi leaf and a palm full of water. Advaita Acharya considered the meaning of this verse in this way. Not finding any way to repay the debt he owes to one who offers him a tulsi leaf and water, Lord Krishna thinks, there's no wealth in my possession that is equal to a tulsi leaf and water. Thus the Lord liquidates the debt by offering himself to the devotee. Considering in this way, the Acharya began to worship the Lord. Thinking of the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, he constantly offered tulsi buds in water from the Ganges. That's the famous manjaris, or tulsi manjaris, or as we used to say, that's what it says, manjaris, Tulsi Manjari. Do we still say Tulsi Manjari? It's come down in disciplic succession. Manjari, Tulsi Manjari. He appealed to Sri Krishna with loud calls. Let's see what the word is. Hunkar. Hunkar. There's a devotee named Hunkar. Name is it. Huh? No? Yeah. The Kulsi named Hunkar, and told me Antar Mali. You know what Antar Mali means? It's a name for Sringadev, meaning he was wearing a garland of the intestines of Hiranyakashipu. I had no idea what that meant all the time I was in Brooklyn. No one knew. The unters, the innards. A garland of innards. Advaita Acharya appealed to Sri Krishna with loud calls and thus made it possible for Krishna to appear. Therefore, the principal reason for Lord Chaitanya's descent is this appeal by Advaita Acharya. The Lord, the protector of religion, appears by the desire of his devotee. And you think about it. Think of how Krishna appeared. Wasn't it? Bhumi was so distressed because all the demons are on there, and she came to Brahma, please help. And he said, okay, we'll go and pray. And we went to the shore of the ocean of milk, and all of the demigods were praying and thinking. And, they got the assurance that Krishna was coming. So that's, and what about Brahma with Varaha? Varaha's coming up too. This is a big week, culminating in the appearance of Lord Varaha. Or I think that right after Nityananda's appearance there, right before, I forget. Right before. And Brahma was in great distress. You remember why? The earth had fallen down the bottom of the Garbhodak ocean. Now that was, Prabhupada once said, that's because of Hiranyaksha. He's always looking for gold. And when he found the gold, he would mine the gold and everything. He unbalanced the whole earth and it fell down into the Garbhodak ocean. So Brahma, he's responsible for, propagation, he's health. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And he's thinking of that, Vishnu appeared as a little mini hog from his nostril and expanded into Varaha. So then Krishna's Kaviraj quotes this verse from Lord Brahma's prayers for creative energy, I believe. Tvam bhakti yoga paribhavata richa roja ase shrutekshita prato nananata pungsam yadhyandiyata huragaya vabhavayanti tadhan vapupanayase sadanungrahaya. O my Lord, you always dwell in the vision and hearing of your pure devotees. You also live in their lotus-like hearts, which are purified by devotional service. O my Lord, you are glorified by exalted prayers. You show special favor to your devotees. O my Lord, who are glorified by exalted prayers, you show special favor to your devotees by manifesting yourself in the eternal forms in which they welcome you. So he was praying for an incarnation to spread the Sankirtan movement. The essence of the meaning of this verse is that Lord Krishna appears in all his innumerable eternal forms because of the desires of his pure devotees. Thus I have surely determined the meaning of the fourth verse. Lord Gauranga appeared as an incarnation to preach unalloyed devotion, love of Godhead. And that's the end of that chapter. So Advaita Acharya, he was, as I mentioned, significantly elder to Lord Chaitanya. And at the time, he lived in Shantipur, which is some distance from Navadvip. I'm not sure how far, but it's... Have you been to Shantipur? How far is it? An hour and a half. What, walking or... By car? Well, that's a long ways. So the various dealings. One of the things that happened is that Lord Chaitanya had this elder brother, Vishwarup, who would make his way to Shantipur, and he would hear from Advaita Acharya because it was hard to find a place where pure devotees were preaching Bhagavat philosophy and Srimad Bhagavatam. So he became, he was, of course, Lord Chaitanya's brother. He was a manifestation of Balaram. But he became sold-out bhakta. He was very, very... and he took sannyas. He left home. When he got older and they were planning to marry him and everything, he just took sannyas. So Mother Shachi had a little bit of negative emotion toward Advaita. She felt he put him up to it, that he convinced him about renunciation and so forth. So this was a reason why Lord Chaitanya wasn't bestowing the pure prema bhakti on Shachimata. And the injunction was, unless she apologizes to Advaita, she's not going to get this pure prema that he was giving out so liberally. So I forget the details, but she did go and apologize, and Lord Chaitanya bestowed on her pure prema. Another pastime was that Advaita Acharya, as I mentioned, he was very eager to get Lord Chaitanya to regard him as his servant, rather than to worship him as an elder Vaishnava, a god brother of his guru, which he was. So he hit upon this idea of preaching Mayavad philosophy. He knew that would anger Lord Chaitanya. So he started preaching a pure Vedanta, impersonalist Vedanta. And when Lord Chaitanya heard about it, of course he was aware of the whole thing, but he came there and he was furious. He started actually beating Advaita. And Sita Thakurani was very upset by that. She didn't understand what was going on. But Advaita Acharya was ecstatic. He was going into ecstasy. He said, now finally he's treating me in the proper way. And he also wanted to get the dust of the lotus feet, which Lord Chaitanya wouldn't let him get. So when there was a big kirtan, Lord Chaitanya would fall down in ecstasy and be unconscious, and he went and took the opportunity to put his head on the feet. So these are the pastimes. Nityananda was the same way. He was also older, a little older than Lord Chaitanya, but he simply sold himself out. He declared that I am the eternal servant of Lord Chaitanya. Yeah. Simultaneously? You had a lineup, huh? I don't remember that. I didn't know it was simultaneous. It very well could be. Yeah. So now another pastime which is very important. When Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, he did so suddenly. There were only a few devotees with him, because he knew how traumatic it would be for the Navadvip devotees. Here he was with his beautiful hair, and he had manifested the kirtan. He had already defeated the Kazi, and there was an open kirtan going on in Navadvip. But still, there were some students, former students of his, who heard him chanting the names of the gopis, and they disrespected him. And he realized that only if he took sannyas would he had universal respect. At least everyone would bow down to him, and this way he'd get benefit. So he decided to take sannyas. And knowing this would be such a traumatic thing for his mother, who had already lost Vishwarup, he went to. He was actually, I think, gone back to Vaikuntha by that time. But he was gone, and so and Jagannath Mishra was gone. He couldn't stand. He couldn't survive the departure of Vishwarup. So it was just Sachimata. And Lord Chaitanya's first wife, Lakshmi, was also gone. She died in separation, bitten by the snake of separation, when he went to Bangladesh. What's today Bangladesh? Gaya, yeah. So it was just Sachimata and Lord Chaitanya, And but Lord Chaitanya saw for the greater benefit of the world that he was going to take sannyas. So he did it, and then as soon as he took sannyas, he started off for Vrindavan. He wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping, wasn't drinking. He was just chanting and wanting to go to Vrindavan. So Nityananda followed him. So the two of them were going for 3 days without eating anything. And they got to Radhadesh, which is a place which is like west, going west, and it's where the Ganges doesn't flow. It doesn't have anything to do with Radha. It's Radha. It's the whole thing. Radhadesh. And so Lord Chaitanya, he didn't really know where he was. He forgot how long he'd been traveling and everything. So Nityananda, he was going along the bank of the Ganges, and Nityananda told some coward boys there, he said, if Prabhu asks you, you tell him this is the Yamuna. And so they did, and Lord said, oh, I've come to Vrindavan. And Nityananda encouraged him, yes, there's the Yamuna, and he bathed in it. But he had already warned Advaita Acharya. He told him, you come in a little boat, and you get in kind of this little rowboat, and you bring some external cloth, which he hadn't have, and a new set of clothes, and we'll take him to your house, and the devotees will be able to see him once more. That's the thing, all the devotees. So they were alerted. They were all waiting at Advaita's house in Shantipur. His wife, Sita Thakurani, cooked a humongous feast, which is described in detail by Krishnadas Kaviraj in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so when Lord Chaitanya saw Advaita Acharya, he began to doubt a little bit. He said, how did you get to Vrindavan? And Advaita said famously, wherever you are, there is Vrindavan. Because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself. He's always glorifying Krishna. But Advaita said, oh, Nityananda cheated me. He told me this was the Yamuna. But I said, well, it is the Yamuna, because at Prayag, Allahabad, the Ganges joins with the Yamuna. I think the festival over now or still going on? Kumbh Mela. I mean, new record, 55 million. They said that at one point over 100 million people had gathered there. Anyway, so the Yamuna and the Ganges going together, very auspicious. Is also the Saraswati in the subtle form, Triveni. So when the Yamuna comes in from the west a little bit, and the Ganges from the northeast, and so they join. So if you just look at the river, the west side of the river of the Ganges is still the Yamuna, because it's still the Yamuna water. This was the argument of Nityananda or Advaita. And I said, you actually did bathe in the Yamuna, because you bathed on the west side of the Ganges, which is Yamuna. Anyway, so the idea is that Lord Chaitanya surrendered, and he got into the boat, and he went to Shantipur. And then there was this, Advaita was very ecstatic to have the two lords in his home. And meanwhile, Lord Chaitanya was in the sannyas mood. He said, you just make a little lafra vyanjana for me. It's boiled vegetables without minimal spice, a little salt, and that's all I eat now. You know. But Advaita Acharya had different plans. So Sita Thakurani had described, they had piles of ghee-soaked chapatis and different vegetables here and there and different milk preparations and cakes and everything. It was like a huge feast. Today's lunch, yeah. So when Lord Chaitanya came in, he saw 3 plates offered, and he saw I forget that he thought they were all offered to the Lord. But actually, 2 of them were meant for him and Nityananda. He said, just give me a little lafra vyanjana. What is all this? He said, please, my Lord, stop your cheating. You come down. He took them, he sat him down. And then there's this whole pastime of feeding Lord Chaitanya. He says, how can I eat so much? And Nityananda was saying, I had hoped to break my fast. This won't even fill half my belly. So he was like joking, and this whole banter back and forth with Advaita and Nityananda. It was kind of, when that chapter first came out, it was a revelation, because in like the Bhagavatam, the Gita, there's not much joking going on, But here suddenly you had joking between the 2 lords, and it was totally approved, and it was a wonderful pastime. And finally, Lord Advaita was saying to Nityananda, no one knows who you are, what your caste is. You're Abhaduta, and you've broken my whole Smriti regulations here by coming here, and stop all of this. And Nityananda said, you invited me here, you have to provide as much food as I want, but this won't even fill half my belly. And back and forth they went, until finally Nityananda threw some of the rice at Advaita Acharya. And it stuck to his body. Now this is said to be contaminating. I think if that actually happens, literally you're supposed to wash or something. But Advaita saw it as a great blessing, and he started dancing. He went into ecstasy. He said, now finally, And so the feast happened, and then in the evening there's a big kirtan. Meanwhile, they had brought Mother Shachi there, and all of the devotees were there. And when Mother Shachi saw Lord Chaitanya with that bald head, this is the big anxiety of the mothers in India, that their son will lose the hair. It's a sign of sannyas. Going to leave me. He won't be supporting me. And but there he was, and she was crying. And so Lord Chaitanya said, "Look, whatever you want me to do, I owe you my life. For eternity. You nourished me as a child. Your order is my command, basically." So she could have said, "Well, come back home. Grow your hair out." But she knew that would be a big blemish on Lord Chaitanya, everything. So she said, well, just make Jagannath Puri your headquarters. And that'll be, they'll get some news from you regularly. In this way it'll be a solace to me. And actually Lord Chaitanya would visit sometimes. So, meanwhile, Advaita Acharya is holding these festivals every day. I think it was for a whole week. They'd have the big feast, and then they'd have kirtan way into the night, you know, and all the devotees got to be with Lord Chaitanya for a whole long time. But finally, it came to the point where, well, it's time for me to go. Now, my mother has ordered me to go to Jagannath Puri, so that's where I'm heading. And you will have to stay here. But there was this whole separation anxiety, and Advaita Acharya was following him so far. He said, "Look, you're the leader here. If you you know, break down and can't handle my leaving, then no one will be able to. So you go back and, you know, take care of everybody." So this was he went back, and but then of course every year they would go to see Lord Chaitanya around Chaturmasya time and take in the Ratha Yatra, and that was going means they would walk. They would walk from Bengal all the way down to Orissa, which is, I don't know, how long is it to take from Navadvip to Orissa to Jagannath Puri? By car, by train. Okay, there are no trains then, so they would walk and have this kirtan. And Advaita was always the senior. He would lead them, and Shivananda Sen would take care of the whole program and then like that. Many adventures there, and they would stay in Puri for 3 months. So they got a lot of Lord Chaitanyas, and they went on for 20 years. And so Advaita Acharya was a very significant figure there. And it's described, you know, ontologically, there's a description of how he's actually Mahavishnu, Sadashiva. And he was sent, you know, in order to take that role that he took in the Leela, and to externally to bring Lord Chaitanya there, to bring Krishna there. So it's a very auspicious day. We should remember, and we should gather at 12 and be here for the 12 o'clock arati. That's traditionally what we do. For the Vishnu Tattva's appearance days, we don't have a Pushpanjali as we do with the great acharyas who come, so forth. So, any other pastimes? I can read some of that wonderful pastime of Lord Chaitanya at the house of Advaita Acharya. We do have some time, extra time. Lord Chaitanya's stay at the house of Advaita Acharya. Let me read some of this. So it describes here. So, when Lord Chaitanya, this is Madhya Lila 3:12, describing Lord Chaitanya's sannyas, just after he took sannyas. When Lord Chaitanya passed through Radha Desh, the place in Bengal where the Ganges doesn't flow, whoever saw him in ecstasy exclaimed, "Hari Hari!" As they chanted this with the Lord, all the unhappiness of material existence diminished. All the cowherd boys who saw Lord Chaitanya passing joined with him and began to shout loudly, "Hari Hari!" This was Lord Chaitanya's method of preaching. He would travel, especially in South India when he went on his tour from Jagannath Puri, and he would just do kirtan. And people would join in, and he would give them a sidelong glance, and they would become prema bhaktis. And then they would eventually go back to their own villages, and people would see them and then become prema bhaktis. In this way he spread. When he met Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakashananda Saraswati, there's so much preaching. And of course with Prakashananda, when he converted him, all his disciples came. So this way Lord Chaitanya was creating thousands and millions of Vaishnavas. When Lord Chaitanya heard the cowherd boys also chanting Hari Hari, he was very pleased. He approached them, put his hand on their heads and said, "Go on chanting like that." Lord Chaitanya thus blessed them all, saying that they were all fortunate. In this way he praised them, and he felt very successful because they chanted the holy name of Lord Hari. We can feel like that too, if we get someone to chant. Calling all the boys in confidence, telling a reasonable story, Lord Nityananda instructed them as follows. If Lord Chaitanya asks you about the path to Vrindavan, please show him the path on the bank of the Ganges instead. When the cowherd boys were questioned by Lord Chaitanya about the path to Vrindavan, they showed him the path on the bank of the Ganges, and the Lord went that way in ecstasy. As the Lord proceeded along the bank of the Ganges, Nityananda Prabhu requested Acharya Ratna to go immediately to the house of Advaita Acharya and tell him the plan, which I outlined before. Nityananda said, "I shall take Lord Chaitanya to the bank of the Ganges at Shantipur, and Advaita Acharya should carefully stay there on on the shore with a boat. After that, I'll go to Advaita Acharya's house, and you should go to Navadvip and return with Mother Shachi and all the other devotees." So we went through some of this. Try to go ahead. So when Lord Chaitanya asked Nityananda how far it was to Vrindavan, Nityananda replied, "Just see, here's the river Yamuna," pointing to the Ganges. Saying this, Nityananda took Lord Chaitanya near the Ganges, and the Lord in his ecstasy accepted the Ganges as the Yamuna. "Oh, what good fortune," said Lord Chaitanya, "now I've seen the river Yamuna." Thus thinking the Ganges, the river Yamuna, Lord Chaitanya began to offer prayers to it. I remember reading this verse when I first worked on this book. This is from Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka, a play by Kavi Karnapur. Chadananda Bano Sadananda Suno Pada Prema Patri Dhava Brahma Gatri Aganam Navitri Jagat Chema Datri Pabatri Kriyano Vapamitta Putri. The poet is known to be a great poet, this Kavi Karnapur. O River Yamuna, you are the blissful spiritual water that gives love to the son of Nanda Maharaj. Anyone who bathes it gets love from the son of Nanda. You are the same as the water of the spiritual world, for you can vanquish all our offenses and the sinful reactions occurred in life. You are the creator of all auspicious things for the world. O daughter of the sun god, kindly purify us by your pious activities. I remember when I first went to Vrindavan, I chanted this verse, the Yamuna. After reciting this mantra, Lord Chaitanya offered obeisances and took his bath in the Ganges. At that time, he had only one piece of underwear, a kopin. So Advaita came in the boat, as I mentioned. And Lord Chaitanya went, "Nityananda has cheated me. He has brought me to the bank of the Ganges and told me it was the Yamuna." And Advaita replied, "Whatever Nityananda has told you is not false. You have indeed just now taken your bath in the Yamuna." Advaita explained that at that spot, the Ganges and Yamuna flow together. On the western side is Yamuna, on the eastern side is the Ganges. Prabhupada explains it in the purport. Advaita Acharya then suggested that since Lord Chaitanya had taken his bath in the river Yamuna and his kopin was now wet, the Lord should change his kopin for dry garments. "You've been fasting continuously," Advaita told Lord Chaitanya. "You've been fasting continuously for 3 days in your ecstasy of love for Krishna. I therefore invite you to my home where you may kindly take your alms. Come with me to my residence." So alms are generally a little something that someone can spare, you know. This first alms. "At my home I have just cooked 1 palmful of rice. The vegetables are always very simple. There's no luxurious cooking. Simply a little liquid vegetable and spinach." So you see there's a lot of lying going on here, but it's all in the service of there's no sin. Saying this, Advaita took the Lord into the boat and brought him to his residence. There Advaita Acharya washed the feet of the Lord and was consequently very happy with it. Ananda Anta. All the eatables were first cooked by Advaita's wife, Sita Thakurani. Advaita Acharya personally offered everything to Lord Vishnu. All the prepared food was divided into 3 equal parts. 1 part was arranged on a metal plate for offering to Krishna. On the 3 divisions, 1 was arranged on a metal plate, the other 2 were arranged on plantain leaves. These leaves were not bifurcated, and they were taken from a banana tree that held at least 32 bunches of bananas. In other words, they're not these little measly leaves we got out here, but huge leaves. The cooked rice was a stack of very fine grains, nicely cooked, and in the middle was yellow clarified butter from the milk of cows. So you have to specify that when you go to India. Cow milk. Surrounding the stack of rice were pots made of the skins of banana trees, and these pots were varieties of vegetables and mung dal. Among the cooked vegetables were patolas, squash, manakuchu, and salad. And it goes on. It's like 20 verses describing all the very involved. Himself a very good cook. Yeah, and the Govinda Namada describes, if you read the first chapter is like breakfast, Radharani's cooking Krishna. Same idea, except in Sanskrit. All the vegetables were made, this we should learn, all the vegetables were made in such a way that everyone present could take prasadam. In other words, some are very hot and some are like mild. Goes on and on for many, many verses. There were hundreds of pots filled with the vegetables. Okay. Different milk preparations, different kinds of sandesh, There were 3 sitting places where soft cloths were placed. Thus Krishna was offered all the food, and the Lord took it very pleasantly. It is the system after offering food to perform Bhoga Arti. Advaita Prabhu asked the 2 brothers, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, to come see the Arati. The 2 lords and all others present went to see the Arati ceremony. After Arati was performed for the deities in the temple, Krishna was made to lie down to rest. Advaita Acharya then came out to submit something to Lord Chaitanya. My dear lords, kindly enter this room. The 2 brothers, Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, then came forward to take the prasadam, still thinking that there's a little bluff for Vyanja there for them to eat. Nityananda, I think, realized. When Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda went to accept the prasadam, they both called Mukunda and Haridas to come with them. They were traveling with them. However, Mukunda and Haridas, both with folded hands, spoke as follows. My dear sir, I have something to do that is not yet finished. Later I shall accept the prasadam, so you 2 Prabhus should now please enter the room. Haridas said, I'm the most sinful and lowest among men. Later I shall eat 1 palmful of prasadam while waiting outside. Advaita Acharya took Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya within the room, and the 2 lords saw the arrangement of the prasadam. Lord Chaitanya was especially very pleased. He approved of all the methods employed in cooking and offered food to Krishna. He still thought everything was offered to Krishna and that he was still going to take a little rice with vegetable. Indeed, he was so pleased that he said, frankly, I will personally take the lotus feet of anyone who can offer Krishna such nice food and place those lotus feet on my head, birth after birth. Wow. When Lord Chaitanya entered the room, he saw 3 divisions of food, and he knew that all of these were meant for Krishna. But he didn't understand the intentions of Advaita Acharya. Lord Chaitanya said, let us sit down in these 3 places, and we shall take prasadam. However, Advaita Acharya said, I shall distribute the prasadam. Lord Chaitanya thought that all 3 servings were meant for distribution. Therefore he asked for another 2 banana leaves, saying, let us have very little quantity of vegetable and rice. Advaita said, just sit down here on these seats. Catching their hands, he sat them both down. Lord Chaitanya said, it is not proper for a sannyasi to eat such a variety of foods. If he does, how can he control his senses? When Lord Chaitanya did not accept the food that had already been served, Advaita said, please give up your concealment. I know what you are, and I know the confidential meaning of your accepting the sannyas order. So he understood that he was Krishna himself, and that he was just getting the offerings that had already been offered to him. Advaita Acharya thus requested Lord Chaitanya to eat and give up juggling words. The Lord replied, I certainly cannot eat so much food. Advaita then requested the Lord to simply accept the prasadam without pretense. If he could not eat it all, the balance could be left on the plate. Lord Chaitanya said, I will not be able to eat so much food, and it is not the duty of a sannyasi to leave remnants. In this connection, Advaita Acharya referred to Lord Chaitanya's eating at Jagannath Puri. Lord Jagannath and Lord Chaitanya are identical. Advaita pointed out that at Jagannath Puri, Lord Chaitanya ate 54 times a day, and each time he ate many hundreds of pots of food. I see who's going to win this argument. Advaita said, the amount of food that 3 people can eat doesn't constitute even a morsel for you. In proportion to that, these edibles are not even 5 morsels for you. By my great fortune, you have just come to my home. Please do not juggle words. Just begin eating and don't talk. Upon saying this, Advaita Acharya supplied water to the 2 lords so they could wash their hands. The 2 lords then sat down and, smiling, began to eat the prasadam. Nityananda said, I have undergone fasting for 3 days continuously. Today I had hoped to break my fast. Although Lord Chaitanya was thinking that the quantity of the food was enormous, Nityananda, on the contrary, thought it not even a morsel. He had been fasting for 3 days and had greatly hoped to break fast on that day. Indeed, he said, although I am invited to eat by Advaita Acharya, today also is a fast. So small a quantity of food will not fill even half my belly. Advaita replied, Sir, you are a mendicant traveling on pilgrimage. Sometimes you eat fruits and roots, and sometimes you simply go on fasting. I am a poor Brahmin, and you have come to my home. Please be satisfied with whatever little food you have received and give up your greedy mentality. Nityananda replied, whatever I may be, you've invited me. Therefore you must supply as much as I want to eat. His Divine Grace, Advaita Acharya, after hearing the statement of Nityananda, took the opportunity presented by the joking words and spoke to him as follows. You are a reject Paramahamsa, and you have accepted the renounced order of life just to fill up your belly. I can understand that your business is to give trouble to Brahmins. Advaita Acharya accused Nityananda Prabhu, saying, you can eat 10 to 20 manas of rice. I am a poor Brahmin. How shall I get so much rice? Whatever you have, though it be a palmful of rice, please eat it and get up. Don't show your madness and strew the remnants of food here and there. In this way, Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya ate and talked with Advaita Acharya jokingly. After eating half of each vegetable preparation given to him, Lord Chaitanya abandoned it and went on to the next. As soon as half of the vegetable in the pot was finished, Advaita filled it up again. In this way, as the Lord finished half the preparation, Advaita again and again filled it up. After filling the pot with vegetables, Advaita requested them to eat more, and Lord Chaitanya said, how much more can I go on eating? Advaita said, please do not give up whatever I have already given you. Now, whatever I am giving, you may eat half and leave half. That's all this bargaining. In this way, by submitting various humble requests, Advaita made Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda eat. Thus Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fulfilled all the desires of Advaita Acharya. Again, Nityananda Prabhu jokingly said, my belly is not yet filled up. Please take away your food. I have not taken the least of it. After saying this, Nityananda Prabhu took a handful of rice and threw it on the floor in front of him as if he were angry. When 2 or 4 pieces or grains of the thrown rice touched his body, Advaita Acharya began to dance in various ways with the rice still stuck to his body. When the rice thrown by Nityananda touched his body, Advaita thought himself purified by the touch of remnants thrown by Paramahamsa Nityananda. Therefore he began dancing. I don't know if it explains in the purport here, but that's usually said to be a contamination, but here's a purification. Advaita jokingly said, my dear Nityananda, I invited you, and indeed I have received the results. You have no fixed caste or dynasty. By nature, you're a madman. Abadut. To make me a madman like yourself, you've thrown the remnants of your food at me. You did not even fear the fact that I am a Brahmin. Nityananda replied, these are the remnants of food left by Krishna. If you take them to be ordinary remnants, you have committed an offense. If you invite at least 100 sannyasis to your home and feed them sumptuously, your offense will be nullified. Advaita replied, I shall never again invite another sannyasi, for it is a sannyasi who has spoiled my Brahminical Smriti regulations. It's a famous line. After this, Advaita Acharya made the lords wash their hands and mouths. He then took them to a nice bed and made them lie down to take rest. It's mentioned in one of these purports how it's very, we should never take one side and the other and think that this is a real argument. It's just all in fun. Happens again when in Ratha Yatra, when they're bathing in that lake and they start hitting each other with water. Harekrishna. Advaita Acharya fed the 2 lords cloves and cardamom mixed with tulsi flowers. Thus there was a good flavor within their mouths. Advaita Acharya then smeared the bodies of the lords with sandalwood pulp and then placed very fragrant flower garlands on their chests. When the Lord lay down on the bed, Advaita Acharya waited to massage his legs, but the Lord was very hesitant and spoke as following to the Advaita. Advaita Acharya, you have made me dance in various ways. Now give up this practice. Go with Mukunda and Haridas and accept your lunch. So there's this tension between Lord Chaitanya trying to, be a strict sannyasi and Advaita Acharya doing all these things. So Lord Chaitanya is telling Advaita that it's not befitting for a sannyasi to accept nice beds, to lie on, chew clothes, cardamom, have his body smeared with sandalwood pulp. Thereupon Advaita Acharya took prasadam with Mukunda and Haridas, and they all wholeheartedly ate as much as they desired. When the people of Shantipur heard that Lord Chaitanya was staying there, they all immediately came to see his lotus feet. I'll just do a little bit more, then we'll be done. Being very pleased, all the people loudly began to shout in the holy name of Lord Hari Hari. Indeed, they became struck with wonder upon seeing the beauty of the Lord. They saw Lord Chaitanya's fair-complexioned body, his bright luster, which conquered the brilliance of the sun. Over and above this was the beauty of the saffron garments that glittered upon his body. They came there and went with great pleasure. There was no calculating how many people assembled there before the day was over. When it was evening, Advaita Acharya began the congregational chanting. He even began to dance himself, and the Lord saw the performance. Now, I read another account, I was doing some studying before, that he hadn't been dancing you know. He was a senior Brahmin, he was elderly. But Lord Chaitanya really wanted him to dance, and finally he induced him to dance. And when he saw him dancing, he was, you know, kind of twisting here and there like that. He was very ecstatic. So ever since then, he always dances in the kirtan, and you see that in the Puri all the time too. When Advaita Acharya began to dance, Nityananda began dancing behind him. Haridas, being very pleased, also began dancing behind him. Advaita said, "My dear friends, what shall I say? Today I have received the highest transcendental pleasure. After many, many days, Lord Krishna is in my house." He understood completely that Lord Chaitanya was Krishna. Advaita led the Sankirtan party, and with great pleasure he sang this verse. That verse which is I think from the... Oh, this is part of a song by Vijayapati. Ki kahibe re saki ajuka ananda or chiradine marava mandire amor. So again and again he sang this verse. There was a manifestation of ecstatic perspiration, shivering, raised hairs, tears, etc. While dancing, Advaita would sometimes turn around and catch the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. Advaita would then speak to him as follows. "Many days you escaped me by bluffing. Now I have you in my home, and I will keep you bound up." So speaking, Advaita performed congregational chanting with great pleasure for 3 hours that night and then danced all the time. When Advaita danced in that way, Lord Chaitanya felt ecstatic love for Krishna, and because of his separation, the waves and flames of love increased. Being agitated by ecstasy, Lord Chaitanya suddenly fell to the ground. Seeing this, Advaita stopped dancing. When Mukunda saw the ecstasy of Lord Chaitanya, he understood the feelings of the Lord and began to sing many stanzas, augmenting the force of the Lord's ecstasy. Advaita raised the body of Lord Chaitanya to help him dance, but the Lord, after hearing the stanzas sung by Mukunda, could not be held due to his bodily symptoms. Tears fell from his eyes, his whole body trembled. Many other symptoms are mentioned. So it goes on like that. And finally what happens is, of course, Shachi Mata comes. You know, she's here. And there's this heart-rending, you know, experience where she's seeing him without the hair and she's crying. She lifts him up on her lap just like he's, you know, 3 years old. And she realizes that, you know, that he's taken sannyas, and then she requests him to go to Puri, and he accepts that. And so that's, and I mentioned how, you know, after 7 days, Advaita, you know, he said, Lord Chaitanya had to leave, and Advaita was following and came back. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. How do you hear it? Yes, go ahead.
Mother Sachi is Mother Yashoda.
Yeah.
The point being, she's at the highest level of Krishna consciousness, but it says that she didn't get the gift of prema bhakti until she begged forgiveness from Advaita Acharya. So how is that? Isn't she already on that level of the highest level of prema bhakti?
Well, I mean, Lord Krishna in the form of Lord Chaitanya arranged that, you know, so there's all this lesson, you know, involved. So that in that incarnation, she wasn't at that highest level until she got the, you know.
Or did she fall from it after she offended him? In other words.
Yeah, I don't remember reading that she was on that, you know, because there's all those little baby pastimes where you think she's at that highest level. But I mean, that's the way it's described.
It's like the gopis becoming proud.
Yeah.
They were the most fortunate, and Krishna had to remove that pride.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other question I have is that Oz talks about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanting Hari Hari. Where does it ever say he chanted the Hare Krishna mantra? Someone asked me that the other day. There's never said, oh, Lord Chaitanya has always chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, the Hare Krishna mantra.
Well, it's interesting that here in the CC, if you just look at the Bengali, I don't know if it even says Hare Krishna. It's always Nam Sankirtan, the holy name of Hari. But in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it's all over.
Okay.
There's plenty of it there.
So it's
you know, so that's
more specific.
And we know how authoritative that is from the CC, how Krishna's Kaviraj exalted the Chaitanya Bhagavat as the main biography, and you know, there's no question of its authoritativeness. In fact, there's one point where one of the verses, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, and Lord Chaitanya is saying to his associates, now go and you chant this mantra at home. He's you know, telling them to chant japa. And also in kirtan, there's no question about it. There's some people say, there was this one, I forget what his name was, but there was a book written about him. He was a main Acharya, and Bhaktivinoda had a lot of debates with him and everything, who was saying, oh no, the Harekrishna is only meant for japa, not for kirtan. And he had this other mantra that he invented for kirtan, Harekrishna, Hare Ram, or something like that, Radha Krishna. But that was bogus. There's no question that Lord Chaitanya did Hare Krishna mantra in kirtan. He taught that. And he certainly did it in japa. There's this verse by Rupa Goswami in one of his ashtakas, in Stavamala. It starts, the first words are Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Yuchai Patatasano Bhakti Rasika is describing him doing japa in a secluded place of Hare Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya chanted it. And he chanted it both in japa and in kirtan. No questions asked. We haven't been cheated at all. Balaram has something. The song that the verse was taken from?
There was a song you said that Advaita Acharya was singing, but I didn't hear the translation.
No, this. There was a verse from a song by Vijayapati, which I didn't know it's still in. No, the verse was in the text of the CC that I read. Yeah, you can't. It's hard to. Let me see if I can find it for you. Manjana 3, right? Yeah, because Advaita Acharya had, conspired with Nityananda to bring him to the home. Otherwise, he would have gone to Vrindavan. Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Here it is. Madhya 3:114, you can see. Ki kahibe re saki ajuka ananda or chira dine marava mandire more. This is a writer said or sang. My dear friends, what shall I say? Today I have received the highest transcendental pleasure. After many, many days, Lord Krishna is in my house. This is a song, meaning it's a verse from a song, composed by Vijayapati. Sometimes the word Madhava is misunderstood to refer to Madhavendra Puri. Advaita was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. Consequently, some people think he was referring to Madhavendra Puri. But actually, this is not the fact. The song was composed to commemorate the separation of Krishna from Radha during Krishna's absence in Mathura. It is thought that this song was sung by Radharani when Krishna returned. It is technically called Mathura Viraha. Madhya 3:114. Hare Krishna.
So Shachi, Shachi Mata, she committed offense against Advaita Acharya, but what was the main offense, I guess?
Well, maybe I didn't mention that. I think it was just in her mind, because she felt that Advaita Acharya had inspired Vishwarup to take sannyas.
Oh, okay.
So she blamed him for that, her motherly affection. But, yeah, that's the That's right. She would try to prevent little Nimai, not Nitai, from going to the house of Advaita Acharya. She thought, the same is going to happen to him. So this is why, so that was an ongoing. Well, he was just teaching Bhagavad philosophy.
Did he inspire Vishrup to take sannyas of Advaita? I mean, when it really came
I don't know if
down
it was
to
explicitly, but he certainly, externally. I mean, he's already Balaram. Trained him up in devotional service, and because that was you couldn't find it in Navadvip. You had to go all the way to Shantipur to get this, Bhagavad Gita from a devotee, pure devotee like that. This is how things were in Navadvip. I was shocked when I read that there's criminality going on and all this stuff in Navadvip, because the bhaktas were there, but they were, suppressed. You got the Muslims on one side, you got the smarter Brahmins on the other side, until Lord Chaitanya broke it all open with the big kirtan, in that debate with the Kazi. Hare Krishna.